And I do believe we are streaming live now. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of TTG's One Week at a Time. It's our weekly catch-up on a Monday afternoon with Deben Travel. As many of you, I imagine, would know, Deben Travel was named the UK and Ireland's #1 travel agency during the 2020 TTG Top 50. And as always, I'm delighted to be joined by owner and managing director Lee Hunt. Lee, how are you doing?
Good afternoon. Very well, thank you. Bit of hay fever, but I'm not one to go on about it.
I was going to say a bit of hay fever. Is that the biggest issue at the moment?
No, there's a few other things going on, aren't there? Yeah.
I was going to say it'll be an interesting conversation as always. But yeah, how's your week been, Lee? As ever, it was great to chat last week, and yet again, the industry's proved numerous issues and hurdles and obstacles this week. How's it been for you and the team at Deben?
Yeah, I mean, from a sales perspective, first of all, not a great week. In fact, no inquiries at all for July and August departures. Certainly picking up on inquiries for September and October. So late summer, a good amount of inquiries, and in fact, a few bookings coming through. And encouraging as well that these bookings are coming in as a result of what we're doing on Facebook and on social media with regards to putting offers out. So new customers, which is obviously always good. Certainly an uplift again for the second week running in ski inquiries and a couple of bookings, so that's good. Normal general winter sun, pretty quiet last week, but I would say an encouraging flow of 2021 bookings, not to the volume we would expect, not to the higher value that we would usually expect as an agency either, but certainly, a steady flow of 2021 bookings coming in. I suppose from my perspective, kind of, being on the counter every day, if you like, but being a business owner as well, it's those late bookings, September, October, that we really do need, because we need the cash. We need the money in the bank now. So obviously it's fantastic that we're seeing a good flow of 2021 bookings coming in, but I'm sure a lot of business owners out there would agree we kind of need the money now. But encouraging signs, definitely encouraging signs. The high street's looking busier. We've had some clients comment on whether the high street will go quieter towards the end of this week when the wearing of face masks become compulsory. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the flow on the high street then. And maybe that's something we can look at over the next couple of weeks, and let's hope it doesn't stop the flow of people coming out onto the high street.
Yeah, that's something we picked up on last week, isn't it? In terms of face masks, I know you had some perhaps reservations about how the face-to-face reaction in store could go, but let's hope, and with that sort of positive outlook of sort of bookings later this year and for next year, let's hope. I imagine, in terms of sort of where we can start with the last 7 days, there's probably only one place with the refund credit notes news on Saturday morning. I know it was sort of midnight into Saturday that the Department for Transport, the government, finally, perhaps 12 weeks or so, even perhaps longer in the making, finally confirmed that these credit notes will carry ATOL protection up until September 2021. Lee, I know that we've spoken about refunds at length, really. I want to get your initial reaction. So where were you when you heard the news? Was it sort of Saturday morning? And what did you think initially when you sort of, this announcement had finally been made?
Yeah, I picked up the news Saturday morning. Breakfast TV news on Saturday morning. I think first of all, fantastic news. The news we've been waiting for a long time, much overdue news. I think it probably highlights the fact that even more the government needs to really focus on tourism and an outbound tourism minister to look after us as an industry. But the fact that refund credit notes are now protected under the government ATOL scheme, is good news for the industry, definitely.
And in terms of reaction from customers, I know you've taken a number of steps to get those refunds for your customers over the last few weeks and stuff. What kind of reaction did customers have? Was it seen as positively by them as well?
Yeah, I must be totally honest, no news back from the customers as yet. We have got a lot of refund credit notes kind of in the folder, if you like, a huge amount of refund credit notes. I suppose for me, during the day on Saturday, and I don't want to be negative about it, but my worry was my customers sitting at home, and I think of one particular refund credit note that I've got amongst all of them that's to the value of about 26,000. back when that refund credit note was issued in March, it already said on there, the operator had already stated that this refund credit note is protected under the government ATOL scheme. And so now I'm thinking, well, actually, they've only now just confirmed that protection is in place. So it's my customer and all my customers potentially sitting at home thinking, why are those guys at Deben Travel? Why have they been telling us for months that these are protected? And actually, they haven't been. And I suppose that worries me a bit because obviously as an industry, we're building the trust is so important at the moment. And is that another thing that's potentially going to go against us? And in fact, this morning, I think I probably would have preferred calls from customers actually saying, you told me in March and April that these were protected and we're only now finding out that they are. Sometimes it's more of a worry those customers that don't interact, but just take the decision independently that they no longer trust you as an agent because we've led them up the garden path when it comes to refund credit notes, and so are not going to book with us again in the future. So I think overall the news is good, but worrying that certain operators for a good few months now have already been telling us that they've been protected, and in fact they haven't been.
Yeah, interesting that you say that certain operators were actively claiming, because it was perhaps almost an unwritten rule, wasn't it, in the industry that the RCNs were okay, but it was that consumer message of getting them to accept it without the government confirmation. And I suppose, do you feel there's a bit of a misstep between how some operators have gone about it? I know many have taken different stances on it, but you want some sort of customer feedback on this, really, to see how they are reacting to it.
I suppose for me, what I did then on Saturday is I went through a number of refund credit notes that we've got that our customers have either accepted because they've had to, because remember some customers initially were told you must take a refund credit note because we cannot refund you until a certain date. So we do need to remember that was the situation with some refund credit notes, and indeed others, customers were happy to accept refund credit notes because they knew they were going to use them again in the future. I suppose, my other concern now is if we do have the dreaded second spike or something like that, because refund credit notes are now valid until the end of September 2021, I just hope we're not going to be in a position where some operators are saying you can have a cash refund, but it won't be until September 2021. So, there are still unanswered questions, and I think it does concern me that, again, certain operators had already taken a decision that refund credit notes were going to be financially protected. And I suppose it's just luck more than anything that these operators are still in business and we haven't had to test that and see if actually we could have got a refund via a refund credit note if anything would have happened to that operator.
And obviously now that we've had that confirmation, albeit incredibly late, it's sort of horses bolted type stuff, really shutting that stable door. What would you like from perhaps ABTA or from other industry bodies? Would you like a more formal approach now in terms of reaction to it? Perhaps more parameters set on refund. I know there's a lot of sort of grey area around when companies should be refunding in this timely manner. But would you like a sort of a more harsher stance or a more sort of clear stance on that?
Yeah, I think certainly at the moment when we're still going through, the biggest crisis the travel industry has ever faced, I do still feel that this 14-day refund rule, which we've heard a lot on mainstream media news over the weekend, is still near impossible for many operators to adhere to. I suppose my hope in a way is that now the government have put assurances around the refund credit notes, that maybe is now the time for ABTA to step in and say, come on, tour operators, if you are going to have refunds, we appreciate it can't be done within 14 days, but you need to put a date on, whether that's 60 days, whether that's 90 days, but we can't just leave our customers hanging. We can't just leave our consumers waiting, not knowing when they're going to get their refund. And as an industry body, as a governing body, as ABTA, if you as operators do not adhere to these, there may well be consequences later on down the line with future membership or whatever it may be. So I think now actually ABTA now have the opportunity to shine, if you like, and actually come out and put a bit more force on these operators when it comes to refunding, definitely.
Because do you think it's been the same old sort of operator names that have been acting the same throughout the crisis in terms of refunds, or has it been different people doing different things at different points, or is it usually the same people sort of doing the same stuff?
I think certainly from our perspective, those companies that we had refund issues with at the beginning of the crisis, we're still having issues with them now. Those that have always acted in the correct manner have continued to do so. But yeah, it's just unacceptable now that we're, I believe, 17 weeks in from when we had our first cancellation, and yet 17 weeks on, some of our customers are still waiting for refunds. They never wanted a refund credit note. From the day that trip was cancelled, they wanted a cash refund. But instead, they were given a refund credit note and told you can have a refund on X date. And that really is unacceptable. Now we're kind of 17 weeks into this crisis. I do believe operators need to look at these outstanding refund credit notes and issue cash refunds if that's what the customer wants, and issue it quickly now.
That said, hopefully there can be a real sort of turning point really in this saga. I know that it's been a real bugbear of yours, Lee, and many, I think every agent sort of the industry over. I know you mentioned at the start in terms of sort of bookings and customer confidence. Have you seen? I know you said you've seen no sort of inquiries for summer and things like that. With the bookings you do have as well, there's already a very sort of fluid situation with different countries in regards to localized lockdowns, and perhaps a place like Barcelona, I think we were talking about earlier. How are you finding that sort of juggling with the business you do have and sort of looking after it and making sure customers have the right information on sort of medical grounds and stuff like that? Is it becoming a sort of an hour by hour challenge as advice tends to change? Or
yeah, I think it definitely is becoming a challenge with the list of the air corridors. What all we really can do is keep an eye on them to the best that we can. So I've just signed up for Foreign Office email alerts for as many countries as I can, those countries where we believe we're going to have more interest in. But because we don't know when that information is going to be updated, it is a real challenge to keep on top of that. So at the moment, when we're taking inquiries from our customers, as travel agents will know, quite often a customer might not have in their mind exactly where they want to travel to. They may well just have dates, they may well have a budget, certain other requirements about what they want from the holiday, and it's our kind of job, if you like, and what we're known to be experts at, is then narrowing it down to certain destinations. What I'm now finding as a travel agent is now we've narrowed it down to those certain destinations, I now need to go onto the government list of air corridors, click into the country, see what, if any, restrictions are in place, so I can make sure our clients are aware of that. But also then at the same time making sure our clients are aware, even though this country at the moment is absolutely fine, nothing on arrival, nothing on returning back to the UK, that could change. So it is a challenge, and I do think for some people, particularly, we tend to have a slightly older demographic of customer here, they are a little bit put off by it, and some of them certainly saying until there's a vaccine or until there's a lot more certainty, unfortunately, they won't be looking to travel again.
And because you had quite an interesting call from your local GP surgery, is that right? Or asking you to sort of give them advice on some entry requirements medically for certain countries. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. It was Wednesday evening or late Wednesday afternoon. Had a call from one of the largest GP surgery here in Woodbridge, from the receptionist at the GP surgery, who basically explained that over the last week or so, they've been receiving more and more requests from patients of the surgery for COVID testing, because on arrival on the destination that those people are looking to travel to, the requirements were that they had COVID tests in place. And the receptionist actually said, as if we've not got enough to deal with at a GP surgery, now we are getting a number of calls requesting COVID testing for our holiday. So I obviously reassured them and said it's not for every destination, pointed them in the right direction of the websites they need to go into. And actually, I did a little bit of research myself, and from the ones that stood out to me, Austria are one of those that require a certificate confirming you've had a COVID test within 4 days of arrival. The tricky one is Hungary, actually, because we actually book a lot of city breaks to Budapest, and you need 2 negative tests, 48 hours apart, within 5 days of arrival. I can't even get my head around that, let alone describe it to a customer looking to travel. So again, I think what that does, though, it highlights the importance that, yes, it's great that we've got this list of air corridors, but it's not good enough just seeing Hungary on the list and assuming that's going to be okay. You've actually got to click into it and read a bit more about what the requirements are of that specific destination.
And do you think consumers are getting more savvy to that as well? Because obviously before the lists were published, they were almost sort of branded as these corridors lists where, you know, it's free to go, these are the lists you can go on holiday. But that didn't really prove to be the case at all, did it? Where, like, as you said, in a lot of countries where there are requirements on entry or requirements when you come back to the UK, are customers getting that sort of flexibility? Or is it on you as the travel agent to hold all the answers and to be responsible for it type thing?
We're finding a mix, to be honest. I think, you know, there are certainly, you know, a large percentage of consumers, customers out there that are doing the research themselves. But at the same time, there are a very large percentage of customers that are relying on us as a travel agent to give the expert advice. And quite honestly, although we've got the what we're tending to say to people is this is as it is now, but that could change. And if it does change, all we can do is see what the rules and regulations are with the tour operator or airline at that stage to see where we stand with regards to refunds or transferring, because we don't know. And I suppose that takes me back kind of 4 or 5 weeks when we took the decision to not book July, August holidays. You know, there is still a fair amount of uncertainty. And I mean, it is great now that we're seeing an increase in people traveling over the next kind of, you know, 10 to 12 weeks. But certainly some of our customers are still a bit concerned about it, as are we as agents.
Have you had to have any difficult conversations with customers who were dead set on going somewhere and perhaps that hasn't turned out to be the case, or elements of their holiday haven't quite played out how they wanted to? As I suppose, has that been sort of a daily battle, almost fighting those fires?
Yeah, not at the moment, because as I say, we really aren't getting the inquiries or indeed bookings for people travelling in July and August. I would say, apart from you know, a handful of bookings towards the back end of August that had already booked some time ago, all our bookings have pretty much been cancelled for July and August. So we really aren't having those issues at the moment. We're still finding ourselves doing changes for September and October. People that had already booked and are now concerned about travelling later on in the year and looking to change. So kind of, you know, EasyJet now on sale until September 2021. That's helped us a bit because we were able to change those customers' bookings. You know, and with a lot of other, you know, with the mainstream tour operators already being on sale for 2021 as well, that's certainly helping. But kind of, I think about, you know, I suppose I think back to my youth where I used to go on, shall we best describe them as lads' holidays. And, you know, it's interesting over the weekend, they're mentioning that bars in Magaluf are closed now. You know, if you were a group looking to get, if you were a group kind of going away in August, say, you know, would that then be a concern to those? Where do they stand? You know, they've already got their T-shirts made. They're already picturing their first fishbowl on the strip in Magaluf. You know, what disappointment it's going to be. So, you know, and agents out there now, I'm sure, are having to deal with these sorts of questions. But I certainly don't know what the answers are.
So do you feel quite, I suppose, vindicated in that respect? Because it was a 2 or 3, maybe even weeks ago, maybe a month ago, when you said, oh, you know, we've put in this decision not to do July and August departures. But I suppose from a business point of view, obviously you need the cash, but at the same time, from a customer service point of view, there's that trade-off. Do you feel quite vindicated now, seeing how things have played out?
Not really vindicated, I suppose, because I was really hoping that I was just going to be proven wrong and everything was going to be great, and that everything was just going to open, and as an industry we'd see those last-minute bookings flooding in. I suppose for me, again, just going back to the point, as a business, we've not seen the inquiries for July and August, so we've not been in a position really where we've had to go, we're not booking July and August because we've just not seen the inquiries. But I suppose for those agents that have had a good amount of late bookings for July and August, you know, I bet they are probably concerned every time they turn on the news, particularly like we mentioned before about the local lockdown in Barcelona and, you know, pubs and clubs being closed in Mallorca and things like that. It is a worry. So, you know, let's just hope these places get up and running again as quickly as possible for the sake of, you know, for the sake of us as travel agents, really.
Yeah, well, actually, I suppose a slice, an element of positive news was the FCO's clarification on its cruise advice. You're in your cruise store sort of aptly today, Lee. They basically just sort of clarified in terms of seagoing vessels, international travel, and that sort of seems to sort of set up the going on river cruises. Have you seen sort of an uptake in that, or interest, or even sort of some consumers aware of that now and keen to river cruise perhaps this summer or later in the year at all?
Yeah, I think certainly, again, not overwhelmed with inquiries at all for ocean or river cruising, but indeed on Friday, I took an inquiry for a river cruise, for a Danube river cruise. It just so happened that the client I was speaking to as a telephone inquiry hadn't been aware of the FCO advice anyway. So, if nothing else, that's luck more than anything. But yeah, I think, it just demonstrates that the lack of knowledge the government has around the travel industry, that they should indeed launch Foreign Office advice against all forms of ocean and river cruise, and then to backtrack. And it was confusion that we didn't need, really. But at least now we have got clarification. But from an ocean cruise perspective, no one's cruising till the back end of the year anyway. So I still see there's absolutely no point in having that Foreign Office advice there, because no one's cruising at the moment anyway. And all I think that advice does is it plants a seed of doubt in the mind of those people looking to book early for next year. So, the sooner that advice can be withdrawn completely, the better. And I do know that obviously there's quite a lot of cruise operators at the moment that are kind of working closely with the government. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll see that advice overturned anyway.
Yeah, do you think perhaps even having it there, obviously sort of relaxing it and softening it in terms of river, but even having it there definitely muddies the water, sort of, so to speak?
I think just having it there does certainly plant that seed of doubt into customers' minds. So I think, we ideally as a business, as a standalone cruise agency as well, we need that removing as soon as possible, or at least putting a date on it. At least putting a date on as, I don't know, 1st of October. That would make more sense to me.
And yeah, and perhaps even sort of more positive news was Kira, your apprentice in Cruise Ready. She sort of won herself quite a very prominent award for a young travel agent in the making, didn't she? Can you sort of talk us through that with the ITT?
Yeah, that was great. So the awards were announced earlier on in the week, and the Institute of Travel and Tourism recognised Kyra as the Apprentice of the Year, which she was absolutely over the moon about, as were we. She's only just turned 18, so yeah, she couldn't quite believe it, to be honest. But it's great to get that recognition, particularly at that age, and particularly at a time where she's probably worried about her job, in all honesty. I've tried to reassure her that her job's safe, but I'm sure lots of people out there are worried about their jobs. So to get that recognition at a time like this is great. Yeah,
and because Kyra, I'm not sure if anyone saw the story on TTG, but she's been very busy, besides sort of working for Deben and Cruise Ready, hasn't she, during lockdown at a local care home?
Yeah, so pretty much from beginning of March, she's been volunteering in a local care home. She's been helping out, mostly in the kitchen, but doing other duties as well. And so again, for someone of that age to not just have a full-time job, albeit then she was working from home, I was certainly more than happy for her to help out locally in the care home as well. And I think that was one of the things that certainly helped with the award. She's great within the shop. She always keeps her college work up to date. She's brilliant with the customers. And for someone of that age to have been on as many cruises that she's been on as well, her knowledge of cruising is a lot better than mine. So, and that sometimes when customers speak to her, I think sometimes even our customers are amazed that someone of the age of 18 knows so much about cruising. So it's brilliant for us to have a staff member like that.
Oh, that's fantastic. How many cruises has she been on, just out of interest, so you can put a figure on it?
At least a dozen, if not more.
Yeah.
A huge fan of, a family have always cruised. So, it's kind of the method of holiday, if you like, that they choose to go on and really enjoy. So, but it's really interesting when you sit down and listen to her talk to customers about cruising, because she's so enthusiastic about it. And she can kind of, on the cruises that I've been on, it's taken me it's taken me a week to find where my cabin is. And she can literally walk you from the atrium to the cabin to the restaurant, and this is all in her mind. And so, she really does sell the benefits of the different ports of call. Gets really excited about it. So, it's great to have someone like that, someone so enthusiastic about cruising, particularly in a dedicated cruise shop.
Oh, fantastic. And just sort of speaking to yourself and the business on a wider front with apprentices, because perhaps you yourself, you came through the YTS scheme, Lee, and other people like that was at Lum Poly. How important is it to have that apprenticeship scheme at Devon, and to be able to sort of bring across the next generation, especially in times like this, really, when there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of sort of worry about the industry?
Yeah, in the almost 9 years now we've been open, we've always had apprentices. I feel quite passionately about the apprenticeship schemes. I started as an apprentice myself on what they then called a YTS scheme back at Lum Poly in the day. And we've had some real huge successes. Two of our team members that we've got in Devon Travel, Hannah and Rebecca, both came through that programme. Rebecca went off to work for Virgin Atlantic as cabin crew. She's worked overseas. She's now come back to us as a shop because she's now back home. So it's great that she's now bringing all that knowledge back in as well. And Hannah's certainly an amazing team member. For me, I've always tried to keep a close relationship with the high schools and with the colleges. I've done careers days with the high schools and the colleges as well. And once you kind of get in with these people, they kind of give you a few hints about who kind of the stars of the class are. And they're the people then that we try to target when it comes to the apprenticeship scheme, working with the teachers and the careers advisors. At the moment, certainly businesses may be thinking from a staffing perspective, the last thing we need is a staff member. But obviously with so many people out there looking to get into college, finishing school, this is an ideal opportunity for them to get into the travel industry. So I would say, if you've had apprentices in the past, then certainly look to continue with that. If you've not had apprentices in the past, it can be a real breath of fresh air into the work environment, and certainly help improve business as well. And there are grants out there that can be had for taking on apprentices. So it's definitely something I'd encourage people to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, and despite all sort of the uncertainty and the way that people are perhaps, given all the huge workload at the moment, perhaps that's something that you can get someone on board, and to have that extra pair of hands is probably always helpful, isn't it? If you can make it work. Yeah. Oh, well, that's fantastic. Well, it seems like a nice sort of a bright way to end, as always. Lee, what does sort of the week ahead hold for you at the moment? I know people who sort of tuned in last week. You're having some work done in the shop, aren't you? But that's been put on
work's
hold
still being done here.
Yeah.
They guaranteed me it was going to be done last week, but it's still not done. There's still a hole in the wall. So week ahead for me.
More of the same.
We've got a lot of refunds that still need paying out to our customers that are long overdue. So I'm going to be working with operations to try and get that back as soon as possible. From a business perspective, from an owner's perspective, over the next week, I need to start really getting my head around how the furlough scheme's working from the 1st of August. Because I do need to start introducing some staff members back into the workplace. I really just need to get a better understanding of how the furlough scheme is now working. That may take a few hours in a dark room to understand that fully. And I think as well, with the bookings not coming in and with the money not coming in, I really just need to continue going through the business kind of, and just seeing what we're spending, what the costs are looking like, and just doing what we can to save at a time when we're not getting kind of the late bookings coming in. But hopefully, if the last couple of weeks are anything to go by, we're going to keep on building up those inquiries and bookings again this week. And with a bit of luck, it'll be a successful week for sales. So let's wait and see. And I'll feed back next Monday on how it's going.
Yeah, so looking forward to chatting there. I like the way you sort of turned all the negatives or homework side into a positive split on the end there, Lee.
We've got to stay positive. We've got to.
Well, that's it. Well, thank you again for joining me, and thanks to everyone for tuning in on Facebook. We do really appreciate it. I hope you found it an interesting insight into Lee and his team's business, and feel free to join us again at the same time at the same place next week. Lee, as always, take care, all the best, and have a great week.
Thank you very much. Catch up soon.